Hello, everybody. So, I'm Skylar Crabtree, and this is going to be a presentation on positive classroom discipline, which is a model that Fred Jones has come up with. So, who is Fred Jones? Fred Jones received a PhD in clinical psychology from UCLA. He served as the head of the Child Experimental Ward in the Neuropsychiatric Institute at UCLA Med Center. Here, he modeled and researched methods to help children with severe emotional disorders that were really acting out, that really couldn't go into regular classrooms or be involved in school at all. And this really piqued his interest in how he could help students in the regular and special ed classrooms behave. So he began researching in regular and special ed rooms, and he studied highly successful teachers for over 30 years as a faculty member at the University of Rochester. He studied teachers that were known for their effective classroom management and were able to get peak student performance because of this and waste very little class time. Throughout his research, he used this research to compile and develop procedures which he presented in his books Positive Classroom Discipline and Positive Classroom Instruction. He did this while he was on faculty at the University of Rochester. These books offered methods and tools for effective classroom management. They are not abstract. They are very detailed and step-by-step processes for how you can set up your classroom, how you can incentivize your students to model good behavior, and how you can get your students to be at their best and waste as little class time as possible. This model is all about maintaining positivity and having teacher having control of the classroom through their body language, rules that are clearly established and enforced, and just overall having good relationships with their students. So, what exactly is Fred Jones's model of positive classroom discipline? So, Jones's model is a series of management procedure for dealing with almost any classroom disruption or problem you could think of in an effective manner. The goal is to manage smarter and not have to work so hard and waste valuable class time managing behaviors and nitpicking. So much class time is wasted when you are trying to deal with behaviors and deal one on one with students. And so the goal here is to learn how to motivate your students and control classroom behavior. Take care of it up front so you're not spending all of your valuable class time trying to manage those behaviors. The basics of it are effective body language. So as a teacher, we're using body language that lets the students know what they're doing is not okay, rather than taking the time to tell them to stop or make a big scene about it. Our body language alone can let them know, hey, it's time to cut it out. There's also incentive systems. Jones is a big fan of incentive systems. He argues that you need to have some sort of incentive system in place in order to have good classroom management. So students are rewarded for good behaviors. It's not always penalty, 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 punishment, punishment, punishment. You're incentivizing your students to do well and they get a reward for it. And a big part of that is us teachers holding up our end of the bargain and actually providing those rewards once they are earned. Jones also encourages positive instructional support, which is that one on one time with students, routines, and setting the stage properly, meaning having an effective classroom that is set up nicely. The students know how things operate, they know how to transition, how things work within the classroom, and also just establishing relationships with the students and parents right away to get off on the right foot. It encourages student responsibility so that they are not just there to sit there and listen to you learn. They're taking responsibility for their own learning and they don't want to misbehave. You're establishing an environment that makes them want to learn and not want to be disruptive. So, a big part of the model is that most lost class time can be avoided by doing three things: having incentive systems, so having that reward system for positive behaviors. Okay, you guys met your goal for this week. There was no outburst. We did not lose so much class time. This is your reward for doing that. We're trying to get those positive behaviors reinforced while eliminating negative behaviors. Effective body language is another big part. Having those nonverbal cues, whether it be a look or standing in proximity to a student and getting them to cut it out and get back on task rather than wasting time calling them out in front of the class and having that escalate. You're just looking at them and trying to get them to understand, hey, it's time to cut it out and get back on track. And it also can be avoided by having efficient individual help. So as you're going from student to student, everybody's wanting individual help and it can be overwhelming. You need to be quick and efficient about it. Students appreciate that. They know you're trying to get to them and you're trying to be efficient with your time and you're not wasting that time. It also encourages a three-tiered management system where you are limit setting. You're telling your students what their boundaries are and what the penalty may be, but you're trying to avoid that. You're trying to avoid those penalties, and rather you're just telling them this is what your limit is. Let's not push beyond that. There's also, of course, the incentive systems that we've talked about and backup systems. So backup systems are, what are you going to do when everything you've tried isn't going to work? Let's say you've got your incentive system. The student's not responding to it. He's still wanting to outburst. He's still wanting to escalate things. You need to know in the back of your mind, hey, I'm not going to escalate. I already know what I'm going to do next. And you go up the chain one. Maybe it's, okay, maybe it's time to leave the classroom for a few minutes or cool down. And then maybe the next escalation is, okay, maybe it's time to call an assistant principal in. It's just knowing in the back of your mind what you can do and having that backup so you're not freaking out trying to figure out what you're going to do with that student and wasting all that class time worrying about that conflict. You're simply taking care of it with the steps you've already presented and moving on as needed. So here on these body language pictures, it says eyes, hands, posture, and legs. Where you're standing in proximity to a student. Maybe you see a student starting to have an outburst, or maybe he's off task and you want to get him back on task without disrupting what you're teaching. Maybe you just go stand beside of him. Maybe you have a look in your eyes and the students end up knowing that look as they get to know you. Your hands, maybe you have a gesture. You're not necessarily pointing at the student, but maybe you gesture at a rule that's posted on your wall, or maybe you're gesturing back at the board or back at their assignment. Just a little gentle reminder of nonverbal cue, hey, let's get back on task. It's time to do what we're supposed to be doing. We're not talking right now. Another way we do that is just standing over a student and being in proximity to them. That lets them know, hey, I see what you're doing. It's time to cut it out and get back on task. They're less likely to want to outburst or be off task when you're standing right over them watching what they're doing. Also, of course, we want to have rewards with this model. The positive classroom discipline is very heavily based on this incentive system where there are rewards for positive behavior. Hey, if we meet our goals for this week, we don't have any off-task behavior, we don't lose such and such amount of class time for this week due to disruptions, this is what our reward is. And there's so many different rewards to choose from and so many ways to incentivize your class. There are tools that Jones gives you within his books that you can use, and there's so many more out there that you can pick from, which is one of the positive things about Jones's model of positive classroom discipline. He gives you so many tools within that book that you can use, and you can use those tools or you can build them and make them your own as well. One of the other main things of this model is encouraging responsibility for students. Students aren't just there to do as they're told. You're helping them foster a sense of responsibility. Hey, I want to do good today. I like my teacher. I like the way our classrooms run. I don't want to have an outburst today. I don't want to do something wrong today. I want to be responsible. I want to be ready to learn, and I want to do what's right. And so a big part of that is when you're incentivizing, the students want to be responsible. And not only do they take accountability for themselves, but they often take accountability for other students as well and try to help them get back in line when they see something being done wrong. So the main discipline strategies with this model is limit setting through body language, like we've talked about previously. You're not using words. You're stopping misbehaviors and prompting with body language. A simple look at a student and having that eye contact, getting them to know, hey, it's time to cut it out, or maybe it's standing next to them, whatever it may be. The students get to know what your body language means, and it's very important that you establish that. Having that backup system and knowing in your mind, okay, I've told this student to cut it out twice real quick, or maybe I've gave him a look a couple times. Okay, now it's time to tell him, hey, you get back on task or you're going outside in the hallway until you decide you're ready to learn and come back in and do the task. And you know how you're going to escalate that from there. It's not a matter of starting to yell and raise your voice at the student and have that shouting match and just escalate. That ruins the entire lesson. You're just giving them simple cues that let them know this is what happens next if this behavior continues. It's all about maintaining positive behaviors and trying to limit how much you pay attention to those negative behaviors and trying to do as little penalty as possible. You're not wanting to penalize the student if unless it's absolutely necessary. You also need to have clear rules and consequences and follow through with them. You don't post very many rules. You only post what you intend to follow through with every single time. Students should know what is acceptable or not, and if it's not posted or if they don't know, they're probably going to push the limits. So having those clear rules and not just enforcing them half the time, or maybe when you see them, being on the lookout and reinforcing them every single time is critical with this model for effective classroom management. So there are 3 strategies for classroom discipline within the positive classroom discipline model. So when rewards prove ineffective, you go to penalty. Okay, they're not wanting to earn my rewards, time to penalize them. When penalties fail to work, okay, they don't care that they're being penalized. It's time to try rewards again. Hey, maybe I can help you earn this if you do this for me. You're wanting to proceed up the management system one level at a time. You're not escalating quickly, only in the case of severe crisis. So you're not wanting to be like, I'm going to call the principal right now if you don't start doing this work immediately, when all the student's doing is maybe drifting off or trying to talk to their friend. That escalation is way too severe. You only do that one level at a time. That way the students know, hey, if I do something serious, that's when something serious is going to happen to me. If you're threatening them with the principal all the time or something very severe of that nature, it becomes more of a cried wolf type thing where the students don't think you're ever going to do it, or it seems like you're really nitpicking little behaviors and you're just simply disrupting your own class time, and when you could just be ignoring that behavior or giving little gentle cues trying to get them back on task rather than disrupting the entire student body's learning. That student is just missing out on their learning for the day. And the long range goal or strategy is to work way down the management system. So the whole point of this is to eliminate those penalties. The students have learned your ways, they learn how your classroom works, and they just quit doing those things. Most of the problems are handled with incentives or interpersonal levels. You build those relationships with your students, you give them that look, they know, hey, it's time to get back on track. Maybe you give them a couple little words to say, hey, let's reel it back in, it's time to get back on track. So that the penalties are basically eliminated. That's the end goal with this model. You're only doing positive reinforcements for behaviors. You're not trying to penalize, you're not trying to punish students unless it's absolutely necessary. So a big part of implementing this model in the classroom is setting the stage, as Jones calls it. So you need to have a classroom that is well set up, it's well organized, it's not cluttered up, it's not in chaos. The students know where things are, they know where to go when they need things, they know how the classroom operates. Jones suggests that you talk to parents early on in the year and gain their support. That way, when a student does misbehave and maybe you need to tell a parent, they don't think you're just nitpicking. You're already off on a good foot with them. You need to have general rules and don't post it if it's not going to be enforced. You need to have operational rules. How do we do things in the classroom, in the hallways? How do we transition? How do we go from assignment to assignment? Just those little things of how you want your classroom to run, they need to be clearly established for your students. Students like a well-run classroom. It helps them maintain those routines and helps limit that off-task and disruptive behavior. You need to provide materials and let students know what is needed to be successful. If you expect them to bring a pencil, they need to know that. If you're going to provide them, do that as well. Establish routines. Do the things the same way over and over again. Students respond well to routines, and that helps limit that disruptive behavior as well. And you need to have engaging lessons that keep students attentive and on task. The less you give a student to do, the more likely it is you're going to see that disruptive behavior. And when the student has nothing to do, they're just going to turn to misbehaving in some way, more than likely. So if they've got something to do, they're engaged, they're learning, they're more likely to behave for you. And Jones mentions that a lot within his model and within the books he's written. So, as we talked about, a big part of Jones's positive classroom discipline model is the incentive systems. I've put a picture of this class dojo, which is a red and green point system where students can earn points for good behavior, and they, in the end up shopping or earning prizes for those dojo points that they get. It's more of an elementary program, but it is used in some middle and high schools as well. A personal reward system I use, I have several exotic animals, and so students that I have know that if I have a good week out of them, then maybe they get to visit with one of my exotic animals that I bring in for the day on a Friday. So everybody's got their own unique incentives that they can come up with depending on what you have access to and what you want to do with your students. It encourages responsibility. Students know, hey, I need to do what's expected of me so that I can earn that reward at the end. It discourages that poor and off-task behavior because they want to do well. They're incentivized to get that reward. And it just fosters a positive learning environment because you're not constantly saying, hey, stop. It's not always negative, negative, negative. You're fostering that positive. Hey, you did a good thing. Here's a green point. Here's a good thing. So there are several criticisms and benefits to the positive classroom discipline model. Some of the benefits, one that Yarbrough mentions, is it's fast acting and can provide immediate results. So if you're a struggling teacher, you need to figure out something quick, you can flip through Jones's books, you can learn some of his tools and techniques, and they will lay out step by step. These are some things you can do right away. And you may see some immediate results that help manage your classroom a little better as you try to get in the swing of things. Progress is measured easily and the ideals are tangible. So you lay out what you want your classroom and behaviors to look like, and you can say, okay, you guys met that goal this week. It's very easy to do that. And it's very easy to say, okay, you guys didn't have any disruptions this week, or I only caught you guys off task 5 times this week. They're all easily measured and tangible. There's also a variety of tools at hand to implement the model. Jones gives a lot of these to you within his books, and there's just so many out there you can build up on if you read his books, and then you can also make your own as you learn more about how you want your classroom to run. There are also a fair amount of criticisms, one coming from education world. The focus of this model is on conformity, where good students are well-behaved students. And that may not necessarily all be true. Some students may have trouble staying on task, or they may be a bit disruptive, and they still may be getting good grades. So it's not always, it's a little bit of a gray area. Another thing is the teacher has all the power in this model. So you're telling the students what they are to do. You're laying out the rewards and incentives. You're laying out the behaviors you want to see. There's little to no student input, which some could consider to be a criticism or a bad thing about the model. And also, Jones himself admits that it's not trauma informed. So some things like incentive systems may be triggering for students who have endured trauma at home. This is something Jones dealt with during his time researching severe emotional behavior disorders, or EBD. And he wishes that he could tweak this model a little better to help include those students and try to figure out how to manage that with them, but he has not been able to do so. And you never know if you've got any trauma-induced or informed students. You can't bend your own classroom management based on 1 or 2 students, so that makes this model a little bit difficult to use from time to time if you have some of those trauma-informed or trauma-endured students. So that's a little bit about Fred Jones's classroom discipline model. I've got my references listed here. It seems to be a pretty good model. There are some tools and things that I read through that he wrote about that I would like to implement into my own classroom.